by that. Is there a motion concerning this evening's agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion to accept the agenda. Mr. Grove, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Rubin. Any comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. So ordered. We have a report from the school board liaison, the student, and I think she's live, right?
Not
Well,
live.
Not
It's
live.
recorded.
She's recorded.
Pre-recorded.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hi everyone. So, how's it going? I understand that it's pretty boring, that everybody's not doing anything, all the school things are canceled. But I do have to say, Virginia college application is coming up next week. And on the 13th, there is the senior parking lot painting party. There are limited COVID cases in Rappahannock County. And that's all. Thank you.
She is so cheerful.
She is.
Yeah,
What's the parking lot painting party?
yeah, it sounds interesting.
So the seniors, and I think this has been done in a lot of other schools too, wanted to get outside and do something artistic and actually decorate their parking spaces.
Designated spot?
Designated spots that they get to paint. And so I know that class is working on having a special day where they all go out together, even if they're not driving or whatever, everyone gets a spot to paint and have a good time outside. And
Good.
Yeah.
Hey, it'd be neat to get a video of that and to see it when it's done too. That'd be neat,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. We're excited.
I'm sure Holly already thought of that. Thank you, Holly. Yeah, you already did. I'm sorry.
Water-based paint?
It's a special kind that they use just for parking lots and asphalt, I guess. So they've looked into it, done research, because that was my first concern. Oh, our beautiful parking lots. But they're going to make them even more beautiful and cheerful and express themselves. So we're excited about that. Yeah.
Good.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes from our October 13th meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion from Ms. Bynum. Is there a second? Second. Second from Mr. Ubben. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. So ordered. Mr. Grove, did you have opportunity to review the bills?
I did, and everything looks in order.
Thank you. So the consent agenda consists of the payment of the bills, the acceptance of the attendance report, and the homeschool report. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion from Ms. Bynum. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Meyer. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. So ordered. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have quite a few exciting reports for you tonight, the first of which has been on everyone's mind, I know, for quite some time, the Vhsl sports update. And what are sports going to look like, and what does the new guidance look like? So I'm going to ask the microphone Ms. Courtney Atkins, our athletic director, head nurse, COVID team leader, among many other names. We're very appreciative. And I will bring this up for you in just a second. There you go. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Okay, good evening. So this is the question on everyone's mind. When are we going to be able to get back to activities? I think the first slide is about just kind of a brief overview of what this document was about that the VHSL released. They don't get very specific in their details because they want to leave a lot of it up to your local schools, and we can make certain decisions. What you should pay attention to in the document is the wording. If it's a must, then we have to abide by that. If it's a should, then we can look at that and see if it's feasible for us to do. But anywhere you see a should or a must, you should really pay attention to those details. So here's our schedule so far. Each season received a 40% reduction in their regular season games. So all of our regular season games will be inter-district only. We will not be playing outside of our district for the season's regular season. But we will advance if our teams advance into the region tournament. At that point, we could be playing our region outside of our district. They're very condensed. It's a 1-week region tournament and a 1-week state tournament. So So typically, we have a quarterfinal and a semifinal and a final, but this year, it's just a semifinal and a final for each level. If you notice, marching band wasn't on the schedule. We haven't had any word on that yet. So we're still waiting for Mrs. Leach to give us further guidance on competitions and when those might be for marching band. Typically, marching band is around football season, which is in the fall, but a lot of things that are not sports, they're kind of moving them. So like theater got moved all the way to spring when it's typically in the fall. So a lot of things are getting moved around, so we're just waiting to hear on marching band. So masks and face coverings, yeah, there we go. So when an athlete is actively working out or physically in a competition, they are not required to wear masks. BDH was very specific about this to Vhsl when they met. So I had 3 webinars last week, and they were very adamant, the Academy of Pediatrics, that if a young person is actively and physically working out, they should not have to wear a mask because of other dangers that can happen. Coaches, if they're very active in the game, aren't necessarily required to wear a mask, but anytime on the sidelines, if they're not active, they will be wearing a mask. Yes?
What is active?
That's a good question.
Some of these we have some input into, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So my thought process is to have them wear them.
I coached a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's sometimes there's communication that might get lost, because when you're on a sideline and you have a player down the court or a player across the field, we're going to have to work on that communication thing, because the mask will be a problem at some point when you're trying to get certain things across to your players. So those are some things we'll have to work out if masks are required at all times for coaches. Officials do not have to wear them when they're in the game, but of course they're running up and down the field or the court. When they're riding the bus, they definitely have to wear them.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
The NCAA and the pros, all the officials are wearing masks all the time. Why are we not doing that?
They did not give any further guidance other than they're not requiring the Officials Association because they are actively working out if they're running up and down the court or the field.
Doesn't make any sense.
No. So. One thing, though, for comp cheer is strongly encouraged to wear a face mask, and sideline cheer must wear one if they're in the stands and they're cheering. If they're stationary, they should be wearing one. And, of course, anyone at the clock or score table and any spectators that come in our building will be wearing masks. Okay, next slide. Locker rooms, this is something we've been doing already because we have PE classes. We have closed our shower rooms for PE, but we do allow a certain number to go in and change and do it in a timely fashion and maintain the distance while they're in the locker room. But we'll have to clean them more frequently now in between each team and before and after the teams arrive. The transportation to and from games, we're still going to abide by whatever we're doing for school. And so our largest capacity bus can fit 26 from the transportation department. And so we're going to work on trying to secure those larger buses for our games, especially depending on if we're carrying 2 teams. Because a lot of times we're carrying a JV and a varsity together, or middle school, they're traveling together. So we have to get creative on that. They will be wearing masks the whole time during transportation, and we'll work on the numbers. But right now, the numbers look okay for us to be able to fit everyone we need to within our guidelines on the large capacity bus. And of course, no food or drink sharing on the bus. Cleaning and disinfecting, this will be just like we've been doing, it'll just be more of it. So before and after events, there'll be a lot of spraying using our backpack sprayers. I'll be meeting with our evening custodian to go over some things with him about how this will change after the games. The team benches and the chairs and the dugouts, things like that, will have to be cleaned intermittently, especially chairs when they get sweaty. And right now, though, if you see in volleyball, we're not switching sides anymore. So they're going to keep everybody on their own benches unless there's an extreme disadvantage to playing on one side or the other, such as a light coming on the court a certain way. Anything that's an extreme disadvantage is discussed before the game between the coaches and the referees. But if they do have to switch sides, they're still not switching benches. They're just going to play on opposite sides. Spectators and concessions. Spectators, we did get permission from the governor's office, Vhsl did, to have a 250-person maximum for indoor and outdoor events. So this 250 includes your players, your coaches, your officials, any game event workers. Anything like that is included in the 250-person. I don't foresee that to be a huge problem for us. Unless it's a big game, like a region game, we don't typically have a huge crowd. So I'm hoping we will be able to at least get parents and close family in to see their children play. Of course, we'll have social distancing set up in the bleachers. We'll have to social distance on the sidelines, so seating for the players will look very different. For concession stand, we're going to do, if we decide to open the concession stand, it'll be all prepackaged, so nothing will be served that's not already prepackaged. A lot of schools are doing drinks, chips, candy, things like that, which is fine. And there are some restaurants, though, that will prepackaged sandwiches that we could sell, so we're considering that as well. Of course, we'll do temperature checks on everyone when they come in. All game workers will have to be screened. If they're an employee, they already have their attestation form, but if they're a parent that are working concessions, they'll be doing a screening letter just like we would for a visitor. I just went through a couple of examples of what I meant by activity specific. So typically before a game, the captains, the coaches, and the referees all meet and have a pregame meeting. So no longer are captains allowed to come up. It'll just be one coach with the officials. And for basketball, they're supposed to meet at center court. At volleyball, it just depends on how much distance you have on the sidelines, but you'll have to kind of figure it out distance-wise and make sure everybody's 6 feet during that. The balls will be sanitized and cleaned before the start of the game and periodically throughout the competition. They did eliminate the jump ball in basketball at the beginning of the game. It'll now be visitors get the ball the first half and home gets it the second half. The team sidelines in football are going to have to be extended to accommodate, especially because they have larger teams, we'll have to accommodate a larger sideline for them. No more handshakes, high fives, pre and post game with your visiting team. No seeds, gum, or spitting in baseball. The match times in wrestling is a 1-2-2, so the 3 rounds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, instead of a total of 6 minutes. So that was just a little reduction in time. There's no more lifting of the hand with the winner. I guess they're trying to find little things we can do to eliminate contact. And we talked about the mandatory face coverings for sideline. Scholastic Bowl is still up in the air, so their competitions may be in a virtual format. We haven't quite heard from the district what they're going to decide to do, because the people that we typically get our questions from will not allow us to use them for in-person events. So we have to go with an online platform if we want to use the same company that we've been using. They will not allow us to print them to use for in-person. So there's some talk of the Vhsl writing their own questions from a panel for the state tournament. And then they adjusted the theater set and strike time just to allow for extra time and social distancing when they're moving their sets on and off. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
You made it.
All right. Any questions?
So I was wondering, so for an event where we can have 250 people in the gym, for example, and we're doing temperature screening, and it could be that I just missed this, but we're doing temperature screening, you said, for all staff and, I guess, players. but not for
right.
the crowd that's coming in, right?
Yes, so we'll
Fans
do
as well.
temperature checks for the crowd,
Right,
anybody
so-
that enters the door, but they won't do a visitor form. Just the workers, and of course, the visiting team.
The form of whether they have been exposed to someone who
Yeah,
has
so
COVID.
we can put a posting on our front door that before people come in, they read, and as they enter, they're agreeing to enter that building knowing they have answered no to these questions.
And we screen them, and it says, 101. Go back to the car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wonder how that's going to work, right?
Yeah.
Who's the, so do we, are we set up to properly,
Man this.
So, Mr. Swimmer and I, yes, Mr.
Yeah.
Swimmer and I have been talking that our event staff is probably going to need to increase, because also ticket managing is going to be interesting, because a lot of it's going to be pre-sale.
Yeah.
Because we have to communicate with the visiting school and our school to figure out how many tickets per player is allowed. So what I foresee is a ticket system where each parent is allowed so many tickets to purchase before the game, and if they don't purchase them by a certain date, then they're released into the pot. So it's going to take some
Yeah.
serious management of that, and so the district, though, is coming up with a district-wide policy of how we're going to handle that. So every game will have a specific ticket, so if you don't have this specific ticket to get in the door, you don't enter.
Yeah,
Could
I'm just-
could we do that? Could you use technology for that? Could we?
There are some online systems that I've looked at. It's always a third party involved, so just
So
trying
there's only
to.
so many that somebody you can get to, and that's all you can
Right,
get,
right.
and move on from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of programs, they're baking about $1 off of every ticket if you're using a third-party online system. So I have a meeting this week with our district, and we're going to try to firm up and finalize some things on how we're going to, an online system would be great, because then it's kind of automated and parents can log in.
Ticketmaster or something, you know?
Right.
So I don't want to make too big of a deal out of this. I'm just picturing, a couple comes from George Mason. The husband is 101 and the wife's 99. She can come in, you have to go sit in the car. I know it's 10 degrees and the game's going to be 3 hours, but you have to go to the car. That, I think we could get ourselves in a pickle. We need to be prepared to enforce the thing
One way that you
That's
could
why
do
Chris is
that,
there.
with online sales,
politely.
if someone's buying a ticket for a specific event, there could be an email push during that day, just a reminder, our policy is if you have a fever, you will be turned away at the door. People, when you get tickets, you could have
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Or we could even
people's email address, and you can
We could
remind them of the
develop some-
guidelines.
could develop some signage at where people come in to park.
Right.
If you have a fever, turn around, go home.
Well, and if they've paid money too, there should be a refund
Yes.
system for
Yeah.
those specific
Well, you
ones.
do,
I think
right?
it is easy, right.
Right, so,
yeah.
and we still are going to, do we still have a deputy at our events?
I
So-
request one every
Yeah,
event.
so it'd be good to make sure that they're, there's nothing that quite helps you follow the rules like a motivator, right?
Yes.
So we at least need to make sure that we've tried to facilitate that
Yeah.
as best we can as well.
When you
I can
have your
definitely
meeting,
work.
will you talk about officials and face masks?
Will I talk about it? Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I can't imagine how you watch Clemson, Notre Dame, and they all have face masks on, and we don't. It doesn't make any sense.
Do they have mics underneath so you can hear the calls and things? I
Right.
imagine they're kind of mic'd underneath, I think.
Yeah,
So that you
right.
can hear the calls, so maybe that's something we can, but also if they're running and breathing, but maybe face shields or just options to have. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea, especially if,
I just
officials
think
are coming from that side.
it's hypocritical to say at the high school level, you don't have to have that, but you go to Clemson and everybody's wearing them. And then in the pros, they get fined $200,000 if they don't have them on.
But I would imagine as well that, we're going to play a few games and we're going to constantly be addressing what you're going to be confronted with.
Yeah.
Correct.
And, just like the school scenario, we're going to have to mitigate and react quickly, right? So, and probably, that's going to be it. The rules might change once we start getting into, trying to implement them.
And we're trying to be uniform district-wide, so we're creating a district policy. So if we go to travel to another school, the same situation is going to be handled, the same way, with the same guidelines. And
Yep.
I also presented that same option to the region. So when we get into region play, because at the district and region level, we have a little more control than we do at the state level. So VHSL will make all the mandates for the state level tournaments, but we can, as ADs, we can talk and manage our district and region a lot easier.
Anything else?
All right, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see
That's
you
good.
wearing your masks in the
Thank
stands
you.
and on the field.
Thank you for the.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know the children are excited about
Getting sports back.
trying to get back on the field and
Yeah.
with their
it's-
peers.
Sure.
So,
It's exciting. We know the children need to play, and it's also, just concerning because of all the protocols that we have in place and being able to mitigate everything. So it'll be interesting, but we're looking forward to it. All right, our next update is the equity team update. So I'm going to ask Dr. Robin Bolt, who is leading the equity team, to come and give us her update on how that team is doing.
How are y'all this evening?
Good.
Enjoying the weather. So first I'm going to start with a little activity. So you all need to participate. Go ahead and hit the first slide. I want you to look at that picture and give me your first impression.
Middle school.
Middle school? What?
Jail.
It's
Jail?
going to change.
Anybody else have a, Chris, I know you have a thought here.
Isn't that Bill Gates?
It is Bill Gates. I'm proud of you, Chris, and you're probably the youngest one here. That's Bill Gates. All right, let's look at the next one. When you look at this gentleman, what do you see?
Isn't that the SpaceX guy? Is that SpaceX?
Mm-mm.
No?
Any thoughts?
It looks like
Preppy kid.
a adult.
A model?
The way you're going, it's probably still killing.
Good thing. So this guy, I can't pronounce, it's Anders, and he's from Oslo, and he killed 98 people. He's a Christian extremist who assassinated 28 people. Next one.
Middle school.
Thoughts?
That's a Mercedes, is that a Mercedes?
It is a Mercedes.
Thing.
Cut up is what they look like. Must be
So
a,
this kid robbed 100 houses, stole aircraft, stole boats, stole cars, and was finally apprehended in the Bahamas. He was like 21 at the time when they finally shut out the engine of a car. So the point I'm making is that the lens we see the world through affects how we see what's going on. And I think that has a lot to do with equity. And I have to admit, there were like 6 things in this activity that I did, and it just, I try to think that I'm very open-minded and try to think, but some of these, boy, I got dead wrong. When you see something, your first impression. So that's what the first thing we did when the equity team got together, is to discuss the lens that we see our world through, because I think that has a lot to do with equity. So equality means giving each student the same resource. Educational equity means that every student has access to the resources and educational rigor they need at the right moment in their education, not dependent upon race, gender, ethnicity, language, family income, family background, or disability, that we're meeting the kids where they need to be met at that time. And that we will achieve that when we can gather our data and not predict what outcomes are going to happen based on those race, gender, zip code, digital divide now. And that's when we know we've hit our goal, that when we can look at data and not discern which group is which. So we've been very busy as a group. We got our committee together. We tried to get a mixture of Rappahannock. So we got 2 teachers, 2 parents, 2 community members, a bus driver, a social worker, a special education representative, and then myself, the equity director. So that we're all looking at it from different lenses. So we're following DOE suggestions. The first steps are reflection, and you look at where you're at now. So we're analyzing data, attendance, grades, discipline, SOLs, truancy. We're gathering students' perception of what they feel here. We are going to gather teachers' perception of what they see. And then we're going to form a student focus group based on the data we get from the survey and get firsthand feedback from the students. And then we're going to analyze our policy to see if where we're at is in our policy and gets us where we need to be. And hopefully come spring we'll have recommendations about professional development, curriculum development, cultural awareness, and I didn't put policy, but if necessary, policy changes. So this group is just formed to see where we're at and ways we can do to improve that, so that every student has equity. And that's all I have. We've been very busy. We've been meeting about twice a month. There's a lot to go over to get to the point where we could even make a recommendation to analyze.
And I think it doesn't help sometimes when I come into our office, I'm like, I need the equity committee to look at this issue right now. We have the digital divide and how these barriers are affecting student achievement and
Which
all
was
these
very
things,
helpful
so.
because we could look through and see what subgroups were having the hardest difficulty. And then we could think of ways to help improve those students.
And was there a correlation?
There was between special education and socioeconomic. And that makes sense for socioeconomic because those are the kids without the high-speed internet. We need to get them the hotspots. We need to set up, get them in here more, ways we can work with the students. And we were able to do it early enough. I know that PR was bad for us, but it was a good thing that we were looking at that and trying to see what we can do to help those kids. And that's what we should be doing.
You know what? If this committee, by the time everything's over, if all they did was achieve that, that was a great
That'd be a big
accomplishment
success.
for that
Yes.
committee already.
So what I did was I went through all the data, shared it with them, and then said, okay, this is what we're looking at. What suggestions do you have? And the parents were great. And community members were, what about this? What about that? So, I think it's working. And I think that we were able to help those students right now where they need to be helped.
Yeah, it's a great accomplishment already.
So I'm pretty happy, but just wanted to bring you up to where we were. The hard work is happening now, and this committee is dedicated to this. We had a bombardment of people who wanted to be on the committee, but with any committee, if you get too big, so a third party picked the committee members. I had nothing to do with it. I said, you choose, this is who it is, so that, I was unbiased in it all. So we have a great group that is committed to this, and I feel excited that I get to be part of it too, because I think anyone in education wants to be part, to help every kid. And if we have one kid, I think we've helped a lot more than one, but you know what I'm saying? We can make a difference. So that's what we're doing.
Agreed.
Dr. Bolt, do you have a sort of a roadmap that you're following? How did you decide on the process? It sounds like you have a
DOE came out with a process that they suggested,
Yes.
and the first process is reflection.
Okay.
And you look at these areas, and so, our discussion always doesn't stay on that one thing. Then when we were making the student survey, it took us a long time because we wanted to include everyone and get all, so it's a process, and it's not, it's not going to happen like that, because change does not happen like that.
It was the digital divide, was it part of DOE's recommended evaluation criteria?
I don't know off the top of my head, but here it's very
I
prevalent.
guess all I'm saying is if it's not, call them up.
Well, and the thing about it is it's a conceptual framework. If you go onto the Ed Equity on the
Yep.
Virginia Department of Ed site,
Yep.
and you'll see their conceptual framework. So many things can fit into that framework and whatever challenge you're dealing with a lens of equity, and reducing the predictability, like Dr. Bolt said, about how certain groups are going to perform in any situation. And once we can narrow that gap and get rid of that, then you have true equity. So it applies to so many situations, and that's why we're adamant to use that framework. And there's a lot of good resources. I know Dr. Bolt's already using the audit tool, self-audit tool with the team to look at all of the equity pieces. So we have the tools, we have a process, we have a conceptual framework, and it's being developed statewide. So it's not just us alone that are
And
working
DOE's been
through it.
very supportive. I just got off a webinar this afternoon, and every month they're doing a different focus on different groups, so that your lens can change a little about how you look at things. And I think that's important. I'm also doing a class through VCU that's dealing with this, about all the way that, we are not a diverse community. We're just not. But that makes it even more important that we look out for our students who are diverse, that we make sure we're taking care of everyone.
Anything else? Anybody? Thank you, Dr. Bolt.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, our next discussion is a budget discussion. We are gearing up for budget season, budget development season, and a whole landscape where we don't know anything that's coming our way and how it's going to look, and this is a lot of fun. So, but the first thing we do have a little bit more control over, and that's the budget development calendar. So let me pull that up for you. It's a draft right now, and I will ask the board to take action so that we can get these dates out and published. And we also, at the Board of Supervisors meeting last week, this month, they did request that the board consider a joint meeting with them, a work session early on in the process. So we put here that that joint meeting is to be determined on the best date for that. If you remember last year, I think it was in February, and it was in conjunction with our regular meeting, and that seemed to work really well. So if that's okay with you, we may put it there, maybe you want it earlier.
I'd like to do it after the work session.
After the January 19th?
Yeah, sometime after. I think we should have a work session before we have a joint meeting.
So like the February, that's why I think that was the reasoning too, why we put it in February last time.
We want to know what we're talking about.
Would be good, yeah.
Right, and those meetings are important because that's where I'll share the governor's latest iteration of the budget, any caboose bills that are coming in to close out, anything new that's in the General Assembly. So those are important for us to get a handle on probably before we have that work session. But they're doing the same thing during that time frame, so it'll work out well, I think, for them as well. So if you're okay, then the February 9th.
February
Very
meeting
nice, yeah.
will start out joint, and then at some point they will adjourn. The supervisor will adjourn, and we'll get back to our meeting.
Yes, that's how we did it last time.
We do it here, or are you going to do it in the high school?
It will most likely be here for space, I believe, but we'll check on that and make sure. But I
I
think we're
didn't hear the question. What was the question?
where it will be. The
Be here or
location.
at high school?
By then, the high school should be completed, so we could do it there, but probably have more room there to spread out. So we could say high school for now. Auditorium.
We did it outside. It'd be a really short meeting.
In February, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so if that's all right, we'll make that adjustment, so February 9th being the joint meeting. We can vote on that, but of course, they will have this at their December
Yeah.
meeting to officially say that's okay.
As far as what we vote on tonight, and we will vote on some budget calendar tonight, we'll assume that the February 9th meeting is joint
Okay,
for our assumption tonight.
sure, and that can change based on what they're doing.
Right.
So, yep. Thank you very much. The next item is the compensation cost chart. So as you remember at our last meeting, we did approve the teachers' recognition increase, which is what monies that we found in our own budget this year. And this was funded locally. So that came to $45,628. And remember, it's for just teachers. Only those on the teacher scale is a teacher recognition raise that begins in December. So when you're thinking about these numbers, remember it's half of the fiscal year, not the entire year. So the perpetual cost over time is going to be double that for the next year. So just be sure you understand that part. As we said, we would bring you numbers at this meeting because any further compensation adjustments we make is going to be fully dependent upon the county releasing those funds. As you remember, they held contingency funds based on allotted money from the governor. And based on that, they also didn't know what the revenue projection would look like in the county. However, the only criteria, if you recall, that they had for releasing those funds to the schools was we need to make sure that the revenue makes and that those are good. So it looks like it has.
And that's been frozen, right?
It was frozen. $185,000 is frozen at the county level. So the criteria that they had said initially was, we can release those as long as revenue makes. And in the county, it looks very promising like it has. So our push to the county will be, we need to, release the funds that were frozen, not only for this compensation package, because this compensation breakdown is going to be far less than what we had planned originally, of course, when we planned the budget last fiscal year, all conjecture and pre-COVID. So, it does change. So our original intent is different. So it wouldn't be accurate to say we're just releasing these funds so, we can do just compensation adjustments. There's other unknowns that may come in the spring that I'm concerned about. There may be extended year that we're concerned about where we'll have to bring on staff longer in the summer to mitigate some achievement gaps. That costs extra money beyond contract time that we've had in the original budget. So there are a lot of those pieces, but we need to know how to plan for that, and the sooner they can release those funds, I'm hopeful that they'll consider releasing them at their December meeting and let us know. And also on a very quick turnaround, their December meeting, that first Monday in December, we hope to get a quick turnaround on whatever you decide we want to do for the staff in the December payroll. So it's a very quick turnaround. My staff is ready, poised and ready to do it, but we need to determine what we want to do here. So the costs here, as you recall, the 2% in the local budget right now covers just teachers. The remaining staff, if we wanted to do the same for everyone and do the 2%, that's an additional $71,253 just to finish out the year. So as we're budget planning, we would have to consider all of that, plus any additional increases we would want to do. We considered the bonus idea for all staff, giving a $500 net bonus. As if you saw the Fauquier announcement this morning, their school board decided to do a net $1,000 bonus for everyone. based on
after taxes.
After taxes, right.
Yeah.
So they net that. And that's kind of what we would do. So the cost is based on a $650 or so amount, so that all staff would get a net of $500 right before Christmas. And that's something that the staff has been talking to us about during our teacher advisory committee. That is very important right now, and people are struggling in the holidays and all this stuff. So that's an option. Now, there's downsides to bonuses that we talk about all the time. It's not compensable income, doesn't affect your retirement, but it's money right now, and it doesn't have a perpetual cost over time for us to consider later. So it might be a good option. Also for bonuses, as I'll talk about in my reopening update, remember we did receive that grant from an anonymous donor to take care of our staff, and we could offset a large amount of that cost with that grant for a bonus. So that's an option too. Teacher increase plus the bonus for everyone comes to that cost, the $147,678.
Can you explain that one? So
Yes.
the teacher increase we already did?
The teacher, yes, so I'm sorry, that one includes what we've already done. So, I'm sorry, Mrs. Witt isn't here, but that's right. So, yeah, if you add those two numbers, that's what you get. Total cost, if you want to see it, yeah.
Right.
And then increase for all staff plus the bonus would run you into $218,931. And then teacher 2% increase and 500 bonus for just the remaining staff. If you said, okay, teachers, we gave you the 2% for recognition, we're just going to give the $500 to everyone else that didn't get that, that's what that would look like. So that's what we're looking at as far as costs with our current staff with the rest of the year outlook. Our recommendation after talking to the CFO, Mrs. Witt, was to probably do that $500 bonus for everybody. and offset it with the wellness grant as much as possible, but of course ask the supervisors to release the entire amount that's frozen so that we can be sure we can plan for whatever comes in the spring.
So, and the other, of course, the other thing that has a fiscal impact to us related to staff is if we get to the end of the school year and the teachers have satisfied their contract with us, but we have to extend the school year because the children are not finished, right? And basically, at some point, we need to have a contingency fund allocated to make sure we can extend, every staff member for whatever, this additional number of days.
Right.
Whatever that is, 20 additional days or something, is going to have a cost associated with it, which we need to be prepared to pay out of this year's budget.
Correct, and that's going to be the impact. We don't think it will be quite that high based on what we've been able to do to learn more about the digital divide and put in extra supports, which we'll talk about in my next update, called Ease the Pressure, and how we're helping build in supports for all these pieces and give additional time and give additional days with supervised staff. Which brought down the numbers that we were concerned with by a great deal. So if that's the case, then it'll be similar just to how we run a summer school program, not so much an extended school year, because that takes a lot more planning and budgeting and all of that and voting on the calendar and sorts of things. So a letter of agreement where we have a certain number of staff, there will be more. I can guarantee that based on the numbers we're seeing now that are taking part in our Wednesday school program and may need winter intercession, but if we're looking at that, that's going to have a cost that we didn't plan for. Our normal summer school budget will be insufficient to deal with some of that extension that we need.
It will be.
It will be, without a doubt, yeah.
So are we not going to ask the Board of Supervisors to fund this? I mean, it's not something we can just find out of our own budget.
We think if, with the way we're doing the bonuses, and if they release the entire amount, we'll be in good shape.
I'm
We
at
really
the
do.
extended year.
For extended year school, that's right now not on as consideration, as the numbers, like I said, have diminished greatly for the kids that need that additional time in completing content. If we get to that point, we'll have to have that discussion early in the spring, and there may need to be some additional funds released.
Right.
But that's also why we're withholding so much of our local CARES Act funds. So our local school CARES Act, we haven't touched that yet. So that's
Okay.
something we're holding as well,
We got that.
just to offset.
My next question.
Because we can use that next year as well. We don't know what next school year, so our whole thing, and the Board of Supervisors agreed with us, is that, we should hold on to those federal fund dollars that have the longest expenditure and encumbrance length of time, so that you can offset those expenses later for the unknown. So far, we've done really great at doing that, and mainly because the supervisors helped so much with our reopening costs, because those were very significant. And something to remember, too, is those were unbudgeted or reallocated purpose funds, so it's not our regular operational and educational services expenses. So that's something that the public should really be aware of, that when we're asking, they may say, well, you received all of these funds to reopen, but remember, those are reallocated, unbudgeted, and because we did the bulk of it in fiscal year 20, all those funds were then reimbursed and then returned to the county, which in turn offset their revenue shortage. So we helped each other do that. So that's a really big deal and such a collaborative effort that really helped this county and all the families. So I hope that that's remembered and reiterated quite a bit.
So if we forward the idea that we are requesting the 185 be released to us, and we also say at the same time, it is our intention to utilize the funding this way, given where we're at in the school year, we've gotten this list so that we can say our plan is to 2% for the remaining staff that we haven't given 2% to yet. So for example, we'd say that. We'd say we also intend to give a $500 bonus to all staff, right? And so that comes to $173K, right? and we're going to be asking for 185. And we should let them know up ahead that
Of course.
the extended school year is something that we're going to need to make sure we're prepared for, and that would be potentially part of the plan too, right? I mean, other than that, the other numbers are, unless we use our own partial grant, we're not going to make 218, 931.
No.
Right?
And, yeah, and like I said, the unknowns for what's coming, for building the budget with staffing, what if they tell us we need additional staff versus, we just don't want to put ourselves into a financial corner where we're going to, be hung up because of the raises that we have to keep incorporating in. So the teachers, we knew that was integral, and that was consistent with the Department of Ed and the governor's office pushing for the 5% and 6% over the course of a couple years. Now, they froze their funds to support us, but remember Rappahannock with our local composite index got such little help from the state anyway. This was a great opportunity for us to gain some ground on our teacher scale where other districts weren't able to. And they depend upon that state revenue to be able to do it, whereas we don't necessarily.
We can't, it's not there.
It's, right, we get such a small portion of that from the government, even though when it's a mandate, that's why we don't like those big mandates, because locally we're funding it, so we do get very little state help here. Other school districts aren't like that, so we're unique.
Also, whatever we're intending to do, will also set a precedent for the other employees of the county, which they're going to be considering when they release our funds to us. Because,
That's right.
we're all drinking from the same water hole
That's
idea. So I would imagine, we make the ask and tell them our intent, and that's the best we can do.
Absolutely, and I would ask that the board give consensus. We don't need to vote on exactly.
But we will in December.
Well, no,
No?
the December school board meeting is too late.
Too late.
We need at the supervisors meeting to know that they're going to release those funds so we can turn around on whatever you all give consensual approval for tonight.
Right.
It doesn't need to be a necessary vote because it's
Right.
contingent on those fund dollars.
Release of those funds.
But as long as I have consensus for, and I know that the county was talking about bonuses and due to a General Assembly discussion, especially for first responders and things. So I know they were looking at that too. I didn't follow the county side so much of the General Assembly budget committees and what they came out with. Honestly, I was so focused on the education piece. So, and they are also looking at putting in a bonus help, but probably not until FY22.
So basically, the consensus that you're looking for tonight is, depending upon the release of funds, this board would want to provide 2% to the remaining staff that didn't already get 2%, and give a $500 bonus to every staff member, right? That type of summation, is that what you're looking for?
Whatever, yes.
Is there any other?
I would concur with exactly that statement, that we should.
And are we missing something if we do? Did we miss something? Did I miss something?
I don't think so.
No, I think you got it.
Is there, because we got a lot of options you've laid out before us here.
I think that
We want number
we've already done
3 on the list,
for teachers.
I think.
The 2% for teachers begins in December.
That's
So no
already
one's
done.
done
It's
anything.
already done.
So what
Yes,
we're talking is 2% for the remaining staff and 500 for everybody.
That's what.
500 net.
Yeah.
right. But remember, that's going to cost very close to that entire amount of money if they
Right.
release it.
But that keeps, I think that that's a good thing to ask for, because it keeps us on track with what we had intended in our original budget, and it accounts for some of the additional hardship and work that our staff has been doing in this unusual time. I think I would rather ask for that and adjust if we don't, personally.
Well, yeah, and that's what, we discuss it publicly. It goes toward our compensation plan, which we had a much more ambitious compensation plan than this even comes close to. So I think that's reasonable. So if that's what the request is, go for the 2% for everyone and a $500 bonus.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's what we'll do. So I will draft a letter that's, for you, Mr. Chairman, to look at with me, and then we can sign and send over.
Yeah, we'll send it across the street.
Thank you. All
Everybody
right.
happy? Everybody's happy?
No, I think that's good.
Everybody's smiling, I just can't see it.
Have smiling eyes. Okay. All right, now to our reopening update. I have several things in our reopening segment to share with you. That'll be kind of our first 9 weeks in review. We got through our first quarter. We have some insights to share with you about that. We have a new Ease the Pressure initiative going on to help with the digital divide and some of the complexities that we've learned through that. Staff wellness grant update, as well as what our pandemic dashboard metrics look like. Because remember, we said we would revisit that at every meeting leading up to our phase-in of bringing in students for 4-day. All right, so our first 9 weeks, we had a lot of successes, and I think at the top of that list is the effective mitigation of COVID-19. We were probably one of the only school districts that had so few cases. Only 2 in that time frame. We're at 12 weeks now and still only 2, and each time we contained it. The staff did a wonderful job and followed protocols to a T, which helps keep everyone safe. And both times it was, like I said, completely contained, no additional cases, and both times we didn't have to close schools. And I think that you see that in a lot of districts that are immediately closing down, which can very easily happen if you don't have those protocols and don't keep people distanced and have the mitigation strategies we've been able to employ. Successful rollout of student devices, which was pretty incredible since a lot of that technology was ordered back in April and May, before we even had the state plans of what they were going to tell us to do. Just because we thought if this happens, we're going to need that, and we're going to need to get on the horn and order quickly, because once those school districts, big districts, we have this happen all the time with textbooks and other technology too. If there's a big order from Loudoun County, you're going to be back ordered for a while, so we wanted to be the first to get in. A lot of staff professional growth and innovation. There are no mistakes, only complex learning experiences. So we're learning a lot and growing and becoming better professionals than we ever thought possible, I believe. So I'm so proud of the staff, and I think they'll very much appreciate what you've said tonight, especially regarding the compensation update. Funding the reopening needs, the collaborative efforts with the county, the increased outreach efforts from all staff. All our staff are making phone calls and reaching out to parents, doing home visits, going to see the kids. It's just been a whole above and beyond level of outreach that we've ever seen. Even the teachers have said to us that, you know, I've had a more meaningful relationship this way because we're in contact so much, you know. So that's interesting. Lots of facilities upgrades, including what's going on right now as we speak. By November 30th, all the air scrubbers and the UV decontamination systems will be installed. And any classroom that doesn't have the circulatory system that we have gets their own standalone unit that decontaminates and circulates the air. So our teachers are thrilled about that and feel a lot safer. And that was done based on those additional funds that were released. If you remember, the state gave another $220 million to schools through their CRF funds, additional relief funds, that had to be encumbered and spent by November 30th. So luckily, Dr. Bolt, wonderful facilities director she was, had this ready in case we could do it. So we got that moving very quickly. But of course, we had a lot of challenges. Remote learning engagement, despite all the outreach efforts, is very difficult. You know, you can't just presume that you're going to send home all these children to learn at home, and they're going to all of a sudden, especially adolescents, become very self-motivated, independent learners with, you know, hearty work ethics and things. I know a lot of college students that don't meet that bill, so that's been a challenge. And how do we explicitly work with students and families to be sure they understand what it actually takes to be an independent learner at home? Limited access to high-speed internet has been a major issue. That was one of the items we found with our Canvas system, that if you have latent internet speed, which is 2/3 of our families, It can spin for a while. It looks as though you have submitted, and then it may not get to the other side, which we've been working with the Canvas team a whole lot on. I know as a parent, that's happened to me several times with my students, with my children. So we see that issue, but of course, there's always a workaround, and teachers are being so gracious about it and giving us additional ways that we can submit work and things. But you know, you work on a platform like that, you really need it to be working the way it's intended to. So, social interaction constraints, you know, without sports and things like that, where, you know, kids are struggling right now. I know Kathy Sickler, our school social worker, has told me that the hotline has been buzzing, which is not what we want to hear, you know, at least they're using it. But our kids are having a difficult time. Our families are having a difficult time. This is a hard time to be away from friends, and they don't have their normal routines and their sports and their activities. So luckily with the Wednesday program and now the Headwaters after school program, and giving kids those opportunities are going to be so quintessential to their social emotional health. So that's been a critical point in our reopening plan as well. Virtual attendance and truancy is an issue being batted around the whole state and probably around the whole nation. What constitutes full attendance? Where can you say they're absent because you really have no teeth until you get the truancy process in to help with whether or not parents are helping at home with those students being engaged. We're an asynchronous model though, so we don't have times where you must log in. So for us, it's a little more of the gray area with, okay, if the student is completing the assignments and engaging in the content and doing well, you can, you know, they're present remote, we call that. But working through that has been a process and a back and forth. And then mental health, like I've said before. But we learned a lot. I mean, and we're still paving the way for a lot of other school districts that are just reopening starting now, you know, so. It's been interesting. We're glad that we got started so early when the numbers didn't look as they do now around the state too with the fall spike. The Ease the Pressure Initiative, where we empower students to achieve, succeed, and excel. That's our support system. You know us educators love our acronyms. So there's a new one. So parts of this right now, and that's our umbrella for any ways that we can ease the pressure, our Saturday study hall, which is we've launched for a while now, where that's just dedicated supervised study time, a study hall on Saturdays where parents can drop off their kids for a few hours. They'll be supervised. They have access to high-speed internet. It's not tutoring, but it's just that dedicated time where, you know, if the parent's off of work, they can drop the child off, and that's been pretty successful. The Wednesday school, which I'm going to ask Mr. Tupper to explain to us in just a moment, and then also possibly the need for a winter intercession, which will be 4 days, a Monday and Tuesday, each week over holiday break to allow just additional time remediation, any SOL retakes for high school students, especially those needing credit. So very similarly to how we run the project graduation program in the summertime, we saw a high need for that in the winter, maybe, if all the things we're doing now, but it's a good little, you know, carrot to hang over. Do you want to come over winter break? And
We have staff for that.
yeah. All right, so Mr. Tupper, if you'd like to come up to the microphone and tell us about Wednesday school. Mr. Tupper, I appointed the coordinator of the Wednesday school program. He had so many pieces involved, being the one who's making so many of the outreach calls, looking at truancy attendance, and also transportation. That makes it all happen, so he was the perfect coordinator for the job. So I think you've done an outstanding job.
Now, I just want to take a moment and look at this screen here. I see a V in there for victory, so all this is good stuff, right? Everybody see that V? I do.
See it, right?
A couple other things I want to say, if you don't mind, but I have to say, first of all, the equity team, what I heard tonight, is certainly going to help our community tremendously, and I want to pick on Courtney a little bit. I don't know if you all know this about Courtney. Obviously, we know she's a state champion coach. She's a wonderful nurse. You know, somebody was looking down on us when we were able to get her. But what people don't realize about Courtney is when she was a volleyball player, I'm telling you, she never missed a serve. She just never did. And if you ever watch her serve, it's the same, you know. So when you see her with her mask on, getting upset at her players when they miss a serve, you'll know why. She just doesn't have any patience for that. Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to see everybody. I just want you to know that I've actually been attending all the school board meetings at home, watching you on YouTube, and I got to say, the computer screens are okay with you. You look great. So I just want you to know that. So Dr. Grimsley stated she wanted me to just tell you a little bit about this Wednesday school. So the other thing I wrote down is it's just, they're unprecedented times, and who would have thought that opening a school building for instruction on what we used to call a regular school day would have to be planned in such detail, but that's where we are. And we were glad to come together as a group. So all the administration, we all got together. We started the week of October 26th. And we planned for 6 Wednesdays to be school days for specific students that the administration wanted to pull in for extra support. This is our whole student body. This includes our A students, our B students, our 4-day students, and our all virtual students, which we have some that are all virtual that have not come to school are actually going to be coming on Wednesdays. So what we did during the week, we planned to contact by phone, and this is something we did earlier before school got started, and I think we've started a good habit. I love calling these parents. They've been very supportive and appreciative. But we called all the students, let them know what Wednesdays they were going to be, their kids were going to be coming. That list was then given to the transportation department, and we created all the riderships for all the buses, so we plotted all those students, and then we called the parents again to let them know, here's what time we're coming to get your child, and here's what time we're going to bring them home. Again, I think what's important, remember we pulled this off in a week. And it just goes to show you, we got a great team and people jump in, and you know, it's just, how do we get it done? And I can't tell you, I'm a big team person, and I'll tell you, they're just from top down, there's just a lot of great people that are making all these things happen. In addition, what you have to remember too, all the COVID-19 mitigation strategies are in place. You know, all the temperature checks, all the physical distancing, the mask wearing, washing hands, all that's taken care of, just like we do the regular in-school days. We also have a nurse on duty. We have 2 great nurses. They've split it up, so we have a nurse on site during that day as well. Currently, I think this is a great number to start. Now, we've already had our first Wednesday, the 4th. We have 80 students enrolled, more than 80 students enrolled. They attend from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. I expect that number to grow to about 100 before this is over. We also, I just think this is fantastic. Also, we're feeding them breakfast and lunch. In addition to that, 13 of our 16 routes are in service that day. We're also still providing transportation to students through our 4-H center. 3 buses are traveling in that direction. We also are taking students to Verdun, and our drivers are also delivering lunches as well. A lot of activity. Sheriff's Department was contacted about Wednesday. They're out there. You know, they're running short too. Chris will tell you. I mean, they have to take care of the county. And Chris did the other day. He had to leave school grounds, I think, to go deal with something at the 211. But anyway, we're proud of, again, it's a team effort and everybody's chipping in. So the Wednesdays that we're active, obviously the 4th took place. Tomorrow will be our second one, and then the 18th of November. Then we go into December 2nd, 9th, and 16th. The 16th will be our last Wednesday before we start talking about the winter intersession. So I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of our families, and I know parents are extremely appreciative, and I think we're going to get some good results with the program. So that's all I have. Any questions? I'd be glad to answer.
Who's doing the remediation?
Pardon me?
Who's doing the remediation?
Different teachers have been employed at the schools. I'm not sure who those people are. so-
At the elementary school, we have a rotation schedule where all teachers are, mostly all teachers, but all grade levels are represented for their group of students. The teachers are thrilled and giving lists to those teachers of the work they need to complete or any extra help. At the high school, each department and special needs, special ed, is all covered with the endorsements and everything. And so it's working out really well. And we had staff that did jump on it. We didn't make them commit to every Wednesday, but they can rotate if they so choose. And we are using some of our CARES money probably for that, for the paying of those staff members to come in.
Aren't they doing the classes for the kids who are not coming?
So this is why we're doing that. It's sort of a permissible use of CARES because it's a direct impact to, by COVID to come in, and we're taking some of the planning away and the attention from their other remote learners and the other classes on that day for those few hours. So that's what that differential looked at.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And Mr. Tupper, you said there were 100 participating?
I looked, there are over 80 now, but I expect it to be 100, potentially 100 plus. We're still in the process of, every week's different. Certain kids may rise to the level that may need a Wednesday to come in and do some work. So I'm expecting at the end of the day that at least 100 will participate.
So this is by invitation only then, huh?
Yes, sir.
Invitation only, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Tupper.
Thank you.
Another way we're easing the pressure for our staff is utilizing that staff wellness grant. Partly, if approved, we'll go forward with using some of that money to offset about half of what the bonuses would cost, and still have plenty to do some of the other initiatives we have. I don't want to announce one prematurely. We will announce a big initiative on Friday to our staff, a few little loose ends to tie up before the holidays. But these grant funds are being used for providing instructional support, for curriculum development, stress relief, morale boosters. Our teacher advisory committee and our Commit to Be Fit team meet to determine what we can do for our staff, just to keep them, just to tell them how much we appreciate them and all this hard work. And I've just never seen a group of people work so hard for their students. It's a really inspiring time to be the leader of this division, to see that in action. As you can just see from all these presentations, it's just incredible. And we are so happy that this anonymous grant came in just to say, thank you. Tell your staff we appreciate them. And you all determine what you need, what your staff needs. And they have input on that through surveys. And we've done things already like pop-up lunches and surprises. And we have a couple of big initiatives planned that we're using this money for, but those I can't reveal just yet. But things like that, fun activities, little gifts here and there. So that was the intent of it. So it's really nice to have that, to be able to do that. All right, the pandemic dashboard. So we are monitoring our indicator rates. I'm sure you've watched the news, and across the state we're seeing some spikes and additional outbreaks and things. But our Rappahannock metrics are looking really good. We're still in the green. Remember what our criteria for moving forward for the 4-day in-person instruction model beginning with K2 is that those indicators stay green or yellow for a trend period of at least 2 indicator periods. And on our secondary metrics, we're looking good that way too. But as I'll show you this map, we are that northernmost green spot, and everywhere around us isn't looking that great. So that's just worth considering and, being mindful. I did send this information out to staff in a memo last week, just to be mindful that those around us are seeing increased cases, and to practice your protocols and the safety mitigation strategies we talk about. Wear your mask, wash your hands, watch your distance, like Dr. Karchner always says. And those things will help keep COVID out of our schools and out of our community. Okay, and that's my reopening update. Do you have any questions?
We're still on track.
We're still on track at this point. Based on our criteria, we're on track to start phasing in 4-day. Yep.
What good news that we're that little green dot.
Isn't that great? I know, I love that
I
map.
love that map. Oh, no.
One of only two communities.
Where's the other green one? What is that?
Richmond County, I think it was. I'll have to double check.
No, it's somewhere along the, yeah, it's.
I'm not sure
along
which-
York.
On the eastern shore,
Down on the eastern shore somewhere.
the Northampton.
I'm not sure.
It's like,
Yeah, maybe. That's more.
I'll have to look at that. But I'm happy we're one of them.
that's a roll.
Let's keep it that way, Rappahannock.
We all love Virginia geography.
Well, we have to be, I mean, like you said, you look at a huge influx in Culpeper this past week, and Warren County's way up, and so everybody else is going sky high.
Yeah, and if I recall, the Culpeper outbreak was
prison.
right, the correctional facility. So you have to look at that too. When you hear outbreak, always, look at the dashboard, look at the data, and kind of see where it's coming from. That's important to inform decisions.
You gotta
So-
remember, lots of people work in that place,
Of course, yeah.
then they go home.
Thank you, Dr. Grimsley.
You're welcome.
Moving ahead to reports of the Headwaters representative,
Hey.
Ms. Bynum.
All right, well, Headwaters after-school program started up on October 20th. They had about 15 children on each the Tuesday and Thursday sessions, so there were 30 starting out. And I just have to see. They have seen an increase in English learning students, which is good because Ms. Viviana has really done some specific outreach, which is an important group to serve, and it's in queue with the equity team report. They've increased the staff. They didn't know what the demand would be, and they've increased the staff, and there are 6 teens who are counselors, as teen counselors. And the variety of activities is some physical ones, some building with Legos, some crafts, and there's a snack, social interaction, homework help, of course, within our COVID guidelines. So it's been a very successful program, though it started later than usual. And then Headwaters also announced that they've hired Brittany Dwyer as the Starfish Program Director, who's a familiar face to a lot of us. So it seems to me like, personally, I just miss seeing her, and we've known her for a long time. I'm so happy that she's doing that. She's also will continue working with the Mental Health Association, the Fauquier Mental Health Association, and so it's a part-time position. And that is the news that I know of from Headwaters.
All right, thank you. It's good news.
Yeah, really good news.
All right, MVGS.
We have not met, but we're still in the process of advertising and looking for a new, I don't even know what we call her.
Director.
Head. So that's where we are. To my knowledge, everything else is, the virtual instruction is going quite well, so they're working on it.
Wonder if they'll do, they do those presentations where the students share what they've been working on, various projects. I wonder if they will do that virtually, and maybe more of us could attend it if it's virtual. Maybe you could ask them.
We're having virtual meetings, so I don't know whether they're going to do that or not.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about? When the students present?
Where they're doing demonstrations of
Yes,
meetings?
yes. Yeah, if they would consider doing that virtually, and more people could observe.
That'd be great. We can ask.
We can ask.
Yeah, ask them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're like everybody else, they're struggling to survive.
Keep up.
It'd be a good way a student could start their own YouTube channel, if they haven't already.
Right.
A lot of YouTube.
All right, thank you, Larry. The next thing is we have an information item related to the VSBA Capital Conference. It's $200 a person. It's virtual in January. Is there anybody interested? If you're interested in attending,
How come it costs $200?
It's virtual?
when
It's virtual, yes.
And it costs $200.
it's just passing information along. What could possibly cost $200?
Well, remember, a lot of these organizations depend on their conferences to keep running, and so that's why they're still charging those rates, even though it's virtual. I attended a Vhsl conference virtually a couple weeks ago. It actually was very informative and very good, but I don't think they realize that people on the other screen, if you're really into what you're looking at, which I love that stuff, but you need a little break sometimes, and you're afraid to leave, and, so hopefully in the agenda they have a nice break list, because I found it was very difficult to try to get away from the screen without missing something important that was part of the meeting, so.
Anybody interested in attending?
I would be interested in that, yeah,
We have a volunteer.
I would do it.
Madam Clerk, could you make sure that we enroll Ms. Bynum in the Capitol Conference?
Thank you.
Maybe you could let us know what you find
I
out.
can tell you what I can
Yeah,
do.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to public comment. Is there anyone that would like to address the board this evening? If you would you come to the microphone and tell us your name and the district you're from? If you don't know that, we can help you out. Anybody? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, I'm Minnie Janot, and I'm here, I'm Stonewall Hawthorne, I think, with Larry, but I'm here to represent Headwaters. I just wanted to make a quick addition to what Rachel said. We started out with 30 students that weekly, and we are now up to almost 80 students weekly, just to let you know. So that's what it There's also, CCLC is also running an after-school program. So we were very excited, and there's at least 15 ESL students that have stepped up. So we really have a need, and a lot of teachers and also faculty staff that we're seeing there. And then I also, did you talk about MDGS as far as going back to, whether it's going to be virtual or going back?
We don't know yet.
Right, that's what I was going to say. I just have a student there, and they says there's no, we ask them every week.
You know, it kind of tends to fall on what everybody else does.
Exactly, and they've got so many different
And they
counties
have
they're
a
serving.
lot of different situations.
But-
Let me ask you, how many kids are going to Wednesday camp?
On Wednesday, well, we had upwards of 110. I'm not sure how many are there now. I'm not directly involved other than Jenny and I are closely, and we have a lot of Headwaters staff that has been hired by the school. There's about 110 kids, and I think that breaks down to about 70 K through 6th grade, and then about 40 teens.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, it's really been an amazing program, and appreciative. And they're actually learning lots of stuff there, too. The kids are getting a lot of hands-on writing. They write letters to teachers, to community members. They have a kind of public service time at the very end where they're writing stuff and doing lots of stuff. I know my husband went and taught a genetics lesson to kindergartners in first grade last week. So, and if you know of kindergartner and first grade that goes there, ask them if they know what the genes are, and they will tell you. They're not the genes you wear, so.
80, that's a great, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Part of what people don't understand is that the counselors learn so much.
Yes.
The young people that are working with the
They are.
younger kids.
It's a real social, emotional spot for the counselors, because as you realize, as we know, they're limited to who they see at the high school. And so I have 2 teens that are in that program also, and they're so appreciative that they get to see a few more people each week and get to interact and have a fun, and the intergenerational learning that's going on there is pretty amazing, and the leadership roles for those teens is a really amazing program.
And your teams don't want to miss it.
No, they don't. Larry's tried to put them away at work, and it doesn't always work.
Thank
Also, my daughter is a counselor there, and I just see how these counselors, we talked about, working with the younger ones, they're learning a lot more than what you can get in a book. And so they're learning, do I want to work with kids? Do I want to be a teacher? And so I've just seen it firsthand, what a wonderful opportunity it's been for them to grow as individuals and as leaders in our school. So I really appreciate that that program is here for those kids on Wednesdays. Secondly, I'd like to thank the Lions Club because they offered their equipment to us for our hearing and vision screening for our schools. And I know that the members of the Lions Club did not want to come into the school as a high-risk category for COVID. But they were, I wasn't going to say that. And so they so graciously trained Robin Murray and myself on their equipment, which is amazing equipment, by the way, especially the spot vision testing. And we were able to get some referrals out for kids. We had some teachers that actually picked up on some of their students that were having vision problems, and we know that vision problems can cause learning problems. And so we were just very thankful that Mr. Grove and some of his partners in the Lions Club trained us. We met at the park one day, and they gave us an overview of their equipment, and we were able to use that to help our children get those screenings done. So we really thank the Lions Club for that.
Did you get it finished?
We did. We got mostly all the grades finished. We have a couple that weren't here on those days. So thank you for letting us use the equipment a little longer, we're able to grab those kids sporadically
we don't
throughout the
need-
week. Yeah.
It's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you for your time. Moving on to the action items, is there a motion to approve the budget calendar as it was presented and discussed this evening?
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Uben. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Grove. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. And so ordered, is there any new business? The next regularly scheduled school board meeting is December the 8th, back in this very room at 6:30 p.m. Now have a motion to go into closed session, Mr. Grove.
I move the board convene to closed session for the following purpose: to discuss and consider the appointment of staff for classified and coaching positions pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ms. Bynum. All in favor, aye? Aye. Aye. Opposed, no. So ordered. We'll have a recess. We're going to be in closed session for 5 minutes. Do I promise? Sure.
No.
No, it's going to be quick, and we'll be right back, and we will have any motions that may come out of there and certify and adjourn. So if you wish to wait, we won't be long, I promise. Personnel report this evening.
Moved.
We have a motion from Ms. Bynum. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Meyer. The personnel report included new substitutes and a roster of coaches all returning from previous season. Any comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion, Mr. Uga. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Grove. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
He's adjourned. Thank you.
The whole